Less than 1 month ago, we were here to announce that our office was supporting the exoneration petition of Brian Hooper, a man who, for nearly 3 decades, had been fighting for his freedom, fighting to clear his name after he was wrongfully convicted of the 1998 murder of Anne Prasniak. And today, Brian Hooper is here, a free and an exonerated man. In a moment, Andrew Marquardt, the head of our Conviction Integrity Unit, will talk to you more about this exoneration. And I know you are all eager to hear from Mr. Hooper, so I will keep my comments here brief. Mr. Hooper's case is the third exoneration our office has supported in the past 2.5 years. And as I've said before, correcting these past injustices is not just about looking backwards. We also review these cases to see what we can do now, going forward, to make sure that this doesn't happen again. There are 3 major policy changes now in effect in our office designed to protect against these types of mistakes that put innocent people in prison for decades. First, except in extraordinary circumstances, our office does not rely on jailhouse informants. Use of them also requires multiple supervisory levels of approval. Second, we implemented a procedural bar policy that ensures meritorious claims are actually heard by the courts. Our courts and our legislature have made it very difficult for people who are wrongfully convicted to obtain relief after a jury verdict or a direct appeal. If an argument is brought too late, for example, or if a court believes an argument could have been brought earlier, then that argument is generally not going to be heard. The purpose of these procedural rules, or bars, is to ensure the system isn't overwhelmed with claims from defendants litigating the same issues over and over again. But these bars have the adverse effect of keeping innocent people like Marvin Haynes, Edgar Barrientos Quintana, and Brian Hooper in prison for decades. In each of these cases, our office waived the procedural bars so that the court could actually hear the arguments these innocent men were making. And in each of these cases, when arguments were heard, the defendants won, and they were exonerated. As a result, our office implemented a policy earlier this year where we will only raise these procedural bars or defenses to post-conviction relief in specific circumstances. This means that if someone has a viable claim that has not been fully heard by the court, we will not raise a procedural bar to keep it from a judge. We will let it be heard. Third, as I have previously announced, this year we implemented an evidence-based eyewitness identification policy that ensures we are only using eyewitness identifications that are reliable and accurate. While that policy does not relate to Brian Hooper's case specifically, it does address issues from both the Marvin Haynes and Edgar Barrientos Quintana cases. At our earlier press conference, Jim Mayer, the legal director of the Great North Innocence Project, said that those of us involved in this system should not be patting ourselves on the back for seeking and supporting Mr. Hooper's exoneration. I couldn't agree more. As prosecutors, it is our job, it is our duty to be ministers of justice and to right these past wrongs. And I'm hopeful that the reforms we have implemented will guard against wrongful convictions in the future. I want to stress one other thing. Wrongful convictions do not just occur in Hennepin County. So I encourage my colleagues across the state and the legislature to join us in efforts to prevent wrongful convictions in the future. Now to Mr. Hooper. Mr. Hooper, before your release, I had the opportunity to meet with and talk to your loved ones who have been steadfast in supporting you, your innocence for so long. And I was able to apologize to them, and now I need to, and I have the opportunity to apologize to you. I'm sorry. You lost 27 years of your life because people were willing to take the stand and lie for their own benefit. I fear that everyone got tunnel vision and you suffered the high, unimaginable cost. The only commitment I have the power to make to you now is that my office will continue to implement policies and practices that protect against wrongful convictions. It should not take someone fighting for their liberty for nearly 30 years for us to correct that injustice. Thank you and your loved ones for being here today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andrew Marquardt.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd just like to echo County Attorney Moriarty in saying that, we're sorry to the family and to Brian for what you've had to suffer. No one should have to suffer this kind of ordeal, especially for 27 years. And I know this is a joyful occasion, but it's tinged with sadness because this was an injustice. And as much as we're belatedly achieving some semblance of justice, you'll never be able to get that time back, and I'm sorry for that. So I want to provide some details about how this exoneration unfolded. Mr. Hooper's case was in the first batch of applications that we received at our Conviction Integrity Unit when we launched last fall. From the start, it was one that we had flagged as a high priority case for a full investigation. So what did we see in this case? For one, you had here a case that was built almost entirely upon incentivized witnesses. And Mary talked a little bit about this with jailhouse informants. In this case, we did have a couple sort of classic jailhouse informants, people who were looking for and indeed got deals in their own cases. There were also a couple witnesses here who admitted later that they were out to get reward money. So perhaps not surprisingly, once those incentives were no longer in play, what you saw over the years was all four of these witnesses who at one point said that Mr. Hooper had confessed to them, recanted in one form or another. But the witness with by far the strongest incentive to testify against Mr. Hooper was the same witness whose recent confessions ultimately led to Mr. Hooper's exoneration last week. And this was a witness who easily could have been charged with murder, given the available evidence. Instead, she was able to plead guilty to a burglary charge with a 31-month sentence. So this case was striking from the get-go in terms of the degree to which it relied on witnesses who all had an angle for their testimony. Beyond that, there were some things about this case that never quite made sense. The most glaring example of this was that that key witness's fingerprints were found on tape used to wrap the victim's body. Notably, Mr. Hooper's fingerprints were not found on any of that tape. Indeed, there wasn't any physical evidence linking him to the murder. So there were a lot of things that were pointing to potential problems right away. But this case really broke open on July 29th when we learned that that same witness who had sealed Mr. Hooper's fate at trial had come forward on her own to confess that she, in fact, was solely responsible for both killing and concealing the body of Ann Prasniak. That witness provided a written confession and then proceeded to give 3 separate recorded interviews with law enforcement in Georgia, where she's incarcerated, and then with the Minneapolis Police Department before our unit interviewed her as well. And in each of these interviews, she gave a consistent account, emphatically taking full responsibility and insisting that Brian Hooper played no role whatsoever in either the murder or concealment of Ann Prasniak. And it's really hard to overstate just how extraordinary these confessions were and how compelling they were on their face. This was an individual who had nothing to gain from coming forward in this way and a lot to lose, a fact that she was obviously very aware. Even so, we didn't take these confessions at face value. We did further investigation. We obtained recordings of her prison phone calls, other information from the Georgia Department of Corrections, in search of any signs that there could have been any kind of improper pressure here, any reason to doubt these confessions. And we found nothing of the sort. In fact, everything we found further corroborated her statements and only strengthened our conclusion that this was the real deal. So that's why on August 12th, we announced our support for Mr. Hooper's exoneration. And we're delighted to be back here again so soon. While 27 years is far too long for Mr. Hooper to have waited for justice, we're happy that this final chapter proceeded relatively quickly and that the court promptly recognized the obvious merits of his claim. So, Mr. Hooper, welcome home. I'm sure I don't have to tell you how fortunate you are to have an extraordinary family who's been behind you all this time. I feel like some of us have been late to your case, and they've been here for years and years fighting for you, and deserve a lot of recognition for the advocacy they've done. Thank you to the team at the Great North Innocence Project, Jim Mayer, Hannah McGinn, Bailey Kahnmacher, for the skilled advocacy and fighting on behalf of people like Brian Hooper who are wrongfully convicted. And he couldn't make it today, but I do want to give a special recognition to Jeff Dean, who was Mr. Hooper's trial lawyer and actually stood by him through direct appeal and several rounds of post-conviction and has been proclaiming Mr. Hooper's innocence for years. Finally, thank you to our conviction integrity team for their hard work and dedication to this mission, and I can assure you that this work will continue as we work to remedy injustices where we find them and do everything we can to avoid future wrongful convictions in Hennepin County. Thank you.
Can you spell your name and say your title again? Sorry.
Yeah, so last name is Marquardt, Markquart, and I lead our conviction integrity unit.
Thank you.
Jim Mayer from the Great North Innocence Project.
Thank you. I don't have a great deal to add beyond what's already been said. It's an honor to be associated with the Hooper family, and I remain in awe by the dignity and the persistence and the resiliency that this family has shown throughout this incredible ordeal. As joyful as it was to see Brian Hooper walk out of Stillwater Prison on Thursday morning of last week, it was also very sobering to think about the immeasurable loss to this family. You all don't know Brian Hooper Sr. yet. I know him a little bit, but I know enough to know some things about him. He is a devoted father. He is creative. He is highly intelligent, and he is full of insights and ideas. So I know that it was not just a loss to have him absent for 27 years. It wasn't just a loss to his family, it was a loss to all of us in the community. Who knows what Brian Hooper would have accomplished in these past 27 years if he hadn't been wrongfully incarcerated. But I will say this as well, I can't wait to see what Brian Hooper accomplishes in the next 27 years. You will hear from him today, briefly, I think, and you may hear from him in the future. But what I want you to understand is that Brian Hooper has things to say, and he has a powerful and a wise voice with which to say them, and we should all listen. Before I turn it over to Brianna Hooper, I do want to address one concern that I've heard about over the last few weeks, and that is the idea that the Hennepin County Attorney's Office did something wrong by working cooperatively with the defense, by joining in our request to set aside this conviction, as if somehow that were a breakdown of a system that is supposed to be adversarial. Nothing could be further from the truth. People need to understand that prosecutors play a special and a unique role in our legal system. A prosecutor has the responsibility to be a minister of justice and not merely an advocate. That is right there in our ethical rules. And so how does that apply in a situation like this? Where based on the facts as we understand them now, had we known this in 1998, not only would Brian Hooper never have been convicted of this homicide, he never would have been charged with it. So what do we want our elected prosecutor to do in a situation like this? Mindlessly oppose relief for Brian Hooper, blindly fight back and try to keep him in prison another 27 years, separated from his family? For what? So she can say she's been a good adversary in the adversarial system? Of course not. We elect people into this very important office to do justice. So the breakdown in the system happened in 1998. When an innocent man was convicted of first-degree murder. The breakdowns in the system continued over the decades that followed when half a dozen efforts to challenge that conviction in court all failed. What you see here today is not a breakdown of the system. This is the system finally working for the Hooper family. And as much as it breaks my heart that it's taken all of us this long to get to this point, this is what justice looks like. With that, I'll turn it over to Brianna Hooper.
Well, while I'm grateful that you're all here to support us today, I just want to highlight that this is not my preferred thing to do. Unfortunately, I did not choose this journey. This journey was chosen for me in 1998 when the community, the county, MPD, and others decided to convict my father without any evidence. My name is Brianna, and I'm the proud daughter of Brian Hooper Sr. For 27 years, my father was wrongfully imprisoned for a crime that he did not commit. Those 27 years not only shaped my father, but myself, my family, and the community. For 10,000 days, I've cried, I've been scared, I've been worried, and sometimes I've been hopeless. For 10,000 days, I went through things that I cannot explain, things that I couldn't even share with my father, because I was at fear that it would make it harder for him while he was inside. For 27 years, I worried constantly about him. If anyone was trying to hurt him, if he was eating okay, if he was sleeping okay, and if I could even keep holding on. Although he stands here with me today now, I'm still worried about him because I understand the full impact that unjust wrongful incarceration can do and has done to my father and my family. But my father is much stronger than I am. He is resilient, he is of faith, and he never stopped believing that the truth would prevail. This moment is so important. This moment is not just a celebration, it's a recognition of that resilience, of that survival. It's a recognition that we must fight for our freedoms, our rights, and stand on what we believe and know is true. And like many others who have been unjustly incarcerated, my father stood on his innocence and never gave up. We cannot ignore the reality here. The decades of lives ruined and stolen. Unfortunately, this pain is not just ours, it belongs to my family and others who have endured the trauma of wrongful conviction. Without significant changes to systems that are shaped based off prejudice, this can happen to any one of us. With no evidence, any one of us can be targeted, dismantled, and unjustly made victim to the same system that was meant to protect us. This is a problem that we all must acknowledge. And if we don't stand for anything, if we don't stand against this system, we can fall victim to it. What happened to my father is the result of a system that values too often convictions over truth, power over people. It relied on false testimonies, incentivized informants, and instead of facts, it relied on lies. And that must change. We need accountability and we need reform. We need to make sure that no other child cries for their father, that no other child is worried about their parent and if they're going to survive prison for something that they did not do. My father is free, but the fight is far from over. His story is not only about our family. His story is about action, is about justice, and that's justice for everyone and everywhere. Because none of us are free until we all are. And so I want to thank the Great Northern Innocence Project, the Conviction Integrity Unit, Jeff Dean, the community, and everybody else who stood alongside us as we continued this almost impossible fight. Your support carried us here today, and if it wasn't for you, I don't know if I could have been here either. If you would like to continue your support, please reach out to my father's media pages, and that's at Justice for Brian Hooper, Brian with a Y, and Senior. Please donate to his GoFundMe. We're going to need more of the community support. And feel free to reach out via email, same, justiceforbrianhoopersenior.com. Today we celebrate my dad's freedom, and tomorrow we keep fighting for him, my family, the community, and for all the other families who have been waiting. Thank you.
Man, I want to know how I come behind all that. Well, I just would like to thank everybody that was involved with me being free. You know, Jeff Dean, the Innocent Project, Jim Mayer, the CIU, all of these guys. I just would like to say this. I mean, I can't begin to explain what it felt like to be sent to prison for a crime you didn't commit. But I knew one thing, that I was never going to stop fighting for my freedom. And I took that time that I was given, and I taught myself a plethora of subjects. And, you know, I used to tell my mom, I'm just away in college right now. You know, I'm trying to be a wizard at everything. But I'm just happy to be home, you know. But I want to say one thing before I close, because I don't know how pretty much everything been said. I just want to say this to Mary Moriarty. It is my sincere hopes that whoever succeeds you have the will and the courage to see the truth when the truth is there and resolve these injustices. Thank you.
Questions?
Talk about the 3 steps you're taking to make sure that this doesn't happen again. What guarantee does the public have that that's going to last beyond the next 16 months?
There is no guarantee of that, and so that is why the public, the community, the voters out there need to vote for somebody who supports this work, because we can all see how critically important this work is.
How many other cases are you working on right now?
Address that.
Yeah, sorry. So right now, I believe we have identified 55 cases that we think are candidates for full investigation, and 13, Brian Hooper's was the 14th, where we are in the process of doing a full investigation right now.
Brian, can I just ask how you felt walking out on Thursday? I mean, I'm 27 right now. I can't imagine my entire life being there as well.
I felt a ton of relief.
Can you
you mind-
come out to the microphone, all right?
I felt relieved, you know, it was like it's finally over, you know. It's hard to put into words what I felt. Elated, you know. That's it. Good.
Brian, what's on your heart right now as you're standing up here with your family, you're staring at all these cameras? What's going through your head right now? Come on up to the microphone and you answer it there.
What's going on?
Yeah, let's.
Man, what? I mean, like a deer in the headlight. What's like, you know, I'm a shy person, really. You know, I'm good in conversing with people that I'm familiar with. I let it all out. People I'm not familiar with, I'm kind of contained, you know, so I'm not afraid of nothing. I mean, it's just a whole lot, you know.
Can I say, I was there Thursday, I saw you talk to you today, there doesn't even seem to be a hint of anger. Is there something hidden there?
Anger not directed is not good. My anger was directed. You know, I took my anger and focused it on taking it out on a book. You know, what's in this book for me to get? You know, so it was anger. It was a whole lot of anger. But I had to use that anger so I wouldn't go crazy. you know, cause I can't, like I say, I can't begin to explain what it feel like to wake up in the bathroom for 27 years. Sleep in the bathroom, cause that's what a cell is a bathroom. So it's a lot of anger, but I'm gonna use it, you know, for something good instead of for something bad.
I guess I wanna know what's in your next chapter, what are your plans going forward, or are there no plans for now?
I mean, I got a whole lot of plans. When I'm executing is the question. So right now I'm just relaxing. But my plans is to, you know, I'm gonna continue to move forward and do what I do. You know, I'm gonna get back into my fashion designing, you know, and a whole lot of things. That's it. Anything else?
Stay tuned, I guess.
Right.
DA Moriarty, any plans to pursue prosecution against Shalaki Young? I know you guys would refer back to MPD, but is there anything keeping you from pursuing murder charges against her?
So our goal, what was an emergency to us, is getting Mr. Hooper's conviction vacated and getting him out. Now we will shift focus onto the entire investigation. I know a sergeant at MPD did do an interview with Ms. Young. Our investigator back there, Julia Merritt, also did a great deal of investigation in this case. We will then look at the entire file and see what, if anything, might be appropriate to charge.
Nothing in the agreement that she reached in 1998 would prevent you from pursuing those charges?
We will look at all of that. We will go back and look and see what she might have been promised. We will go back and we will look at the statute of limitations. We will also look at the fact that there was no incentive for her to come forward. Absolutely not. She is doing, I think she's got about 4 years in prison in Georgia. She made this statement multiple times to many different people, knowing and expecting that she would be charged with murder or something like that, and believing that she was going to probably spend the rest of her life in prison. And so that's what made it really authentic and credible and believable. So we will take all of that into consideration when we're looking at her situation.
Will anything be done to the people that lied on oath that made his conviction stick?
Well, one of those people is deceased. Or are you talking about the informants, the jailhouse informants?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of
Both
those.
them and the people that got him convicted. Will
Yeah.
anything happen to them?
So the question is, will anything happen to other people that were involved in this conviction? As I said, we have really been focused on Mr. Hooper, getting his conviction vacated, getting him out. Now our attention will shift to everybody that was involved in this to see if any further action by our office is appropriate.
Final question. Restitution. Marvin Haynes is still fighting for his. What do you anticipate happening in Brian's case?
Jim, do you want to take that one?
Up until now, everyone's been very much focused on step one, which is simply getting the conviction set aside, getting him exonerated and released. Going forward, that's something that the family is going to be working on, I'm sure. Not something that our organization does, but it's certainly something that they've got to consider at this point, given what happened.